Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield 3 related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in a future episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. So the first question for today comes in from John, who asks, how would you feel about adding wind effects on bullets in Battlefield 4? They could also give the sniper rifles an attachment of some sort to tell how much wind there is. This would change up the gameplay and close the gap between the classes. So I'm gonna go with a pretty big no on this one, because while DICE does like to make their games more realistic than a lot of the other first-person shooters out there, they are not a war simulator. There are war simulators out there. If you want to play them, then I would recommend the Arma series, but Battlefield isn't one of them. And I don't see how adding a wind element is really going to make the game any more fun or accessible to a larger audience. And if they did add this into the game, I think it would just lead to a lot of frustrations. I can only imagine what it would be like to play as a recon with a wind element into the game. You would have to compensate not only for the bullet travel speed, how long it's going to take it for it to reach the target, the bullet drop, but then adding in a wind element into the mix, it would be almost not impossible to take someone out at range, but it really wouldn't be all that enjoyable to try to do that consistently. And so this would not, you say that it would close the gap between classes. I think it would just increase the gap between classes, especially for the recon class. Even if they did have this wind indicator, you would still have way too many things to calculate, and it would get out of hand. I mean, when you're a sniper in real life, yes, you have to calculate for the wind. You have to also calculate for the Coriolis effect and all these other different factors if you are actually trying to snipe someone from like a mile off. But you're not camping in one location for days like you would in those real life scenarios. And that's just one example. I mean, there are so many things in the Battlefield franchise that is not realistic. First of all, if someone gets blasted by a tank in real life, there's no way you're going to be able to shock paddle them alive. Not only that, but just shock paddling someone in the middle of a combat isn't going to, heal them to full health after their heart has stopped. There's just so many things in Battlefield that is not realistic. And so while I do get what you're going for, it's always nice to have different elements into the game and try to make the game more realistic, you have to realize that these aspects need to be fun. They need to be enjoyable, and if they just are kind of something tacked on, or that they don't really bring in a larger audience, I don't see DICE going down that route. So the next question for today comes in from Trooper, who asks, I was wanting to know your take if in Battlefield 4 some experimental / exotic weapons or gear were added into the gameplay. Maybe bring back the XM8, or even letting players have more grenade options like a smoke grenade that any class could have access to, or even making C4 available to all classes. So you kind of have a couple questions here, so I'm going to have to tackle them one by one. And your first one regarding the XM8s, I am all for having different and cool weapons in Battlefield 4, but you really have to remember that just because the weapon is called something and it looks like a weapon in real life, that doesn't mean it's going to perform exactly like it does in real life, and it's just more of an aesthetic thing. They could make a weapon look like a giant sausage, and it could act the same way as a light machine gun does in Battlefield 3. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the weapon looks like. It's purely aesthetic. It all really just comes down to the stats. And while DICE does want to make it all the weapons kind of look and feel like they do in real life, it kind of gets to the point where balancing everything comes out, is that there are so many, especially in Battlefield 3, there are so many weapons in the game where if you even added more into it, they're not really going to feel all that different from the ones that they currently have. And so, like I said, I'm all for having more weapons, and if they do have the XM8, it would be cool, but it would be pretty much just a purely cosmetic aspect of the game. But as for having different grenade options for every class, I think that's fine as long as it doesn't take away from one of the classes, because if it was the exact same system as it is right now in Battlefield 3, then I'm not exactly sure if I'd want it, because one of the reasons why you would want to play as an assault class is for the smoke grenade. I know a lot of people don't use it very often because of the spotting kind of mechanic and it can go through it, but it is a useful gadget to use. but if everyone could use a smoke grenade, then that one tool for the assault class becomes a lot less useful because it can be spread out between multiple classes, and so there really isn't a reason to run that. And so as long as that doesn't become an issue, or DICE doesn't mind that, then, you know, I'm all for it. But with regard to having C4 on all classes, that's where I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't honestly wouldn't even want it to happen. And the reason why this is because if they did do this, it would reduce the effectiveness of the engineer and the support class severely. If all classes had the capability of taking out an enemy vehicle just as fast as they do right now with the support class, there'd be no reason to play as a support. Everyone would gravitate on over to the assault class that has arguably the best weapons in the game, and if they also had the capability of taking out enemy vehicles just as quickly as the support with C4, I mean, there would be no contest. The support weapons are nice. Using the bipod to lock down a long corridor, like on Operation Metro, is very effective, but in most circumstances, everyone is going to want to use the M16A3 or the assault weapons, and the same is true for the engineer class. I mean, sure, RPGs are great, but if there is just a huge saturation of classes that have the capability of taking out enemy vehicles, then a lot less people are going to play as an engineer. So I honestly do not see having C4 on every single class being a good idea, nor would DICE even go down this route. So the final question for today is, what are your thoughts about the air and land vehicles in Battlefield 4 requiring actual reload/rearms, heading back to deployment to stock up, for example? Infantry soldiers can actually run out of ammo if no one has dropped any packs. Why not vehicles? So a while ago, I would have completely disagreed with this suggestion entirely, but now I only disagree with part of it, and that entails with land vehicles. I don't think that a tank needs to go back to deployment or go back to a supply crate to rearm itself. I find that concept to be outdated. It's not fun since the tanks themselves are very slow to travel across the map to get back to your deployment just so you can get some more ammunition. It's not enjoyable, and I don't think it would add anything to the game or make it any more fun or tactical. But I do like the idea of requiring air vehicles to do that, because it would kind of relieve the pressure on the map for a second, and also allow people to counter air vehicles that do need to go back to deployment. So if you are in some epic jet fighter, there, you know, jets are flying all over the place, but then all of a sudden you're out of ammunition, you need to go back to deployment to be effective, and so someone else can take advantage of that, take out a key target, or just go chase after you because now you're very vulnerable, and it would kind of reduce the effectiveness of jets. And I honestly think that jet combat needs some work. I just find that it's either a non-issue, or they just completely dominate the airspace and then dominate everyone on the ground, and it kind of just hurts the game. And there's pretty much all of my favorite maps don't have jets on them, and it's because of that very reason. And so I can see where having them or requiring them to reload every once in a while would relieve the pressure on the map for a couple of seconds and allow people to pretty much just set up so that they can then go take out those jets, or that they can take out something on the ground while the enemy is trying to reload. So yeah, I like that concept. It would be interesting if they did add that into Battlefield 4, and I would agree. But those are all the questions that I'm going to be answering for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Mailbox. Like I said, if you would like to submit your own question, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.